Our guest this morning is Stan Saylor, state representative from the 94th Legislative District, but also the head of the Appropriations Committee of the State House in the State Assembly. And he's with us here this morning on WSBA. Good morning, Stan. How are you?
Doing great. What a beautiful weekend. A little cloudy yesterday, but it was a great weekend.
Yeah, a little rain yesterday when I had a tee-off time scheduled with my wife for 4 o'clock, but we'll make up for that this week. And, it was a gorgeous weekend. Really nice to get out and around and so forth. And, you're kind of getting back to work, so to speak, and you guys have never stopped working, I guess, right now at the State Assembly. But I wanted to get into a couple things with you. We heard word on Friday that we're moving to yellow status on the 22nd. And I had a theory last week, Stan. I'm probably not the first one to come up with this, but most people who said, let us move to yellow really meant, let us move to green. But there are, as of yet, no rules for how you get from yellow to green. So let me ask you this question. York County is moving to yellow on Friday the 22nd. What does that mean? Is that enough to really get the economy going the way we want to and still do so in a safe way? What are your thoughts on that?
No, it's not. And I got to be honest with you, when you look at the statistics for all of South Central Pennsylvania, there's no reason for us not to be green where we're fully back open. That doesn't mean that you don't take precautions. Like I encourage people who have pre-existing conditions to be careful. People who are in nursing homes we need to be diligent on those kind of things. But in the end, when I look at the number of people that are getting sick and who's getting sick, it's only those with pre-existing conditions or those in nursing homes. And so we need to get this economy going, or we already know there's several people who believe they will have to declare bankruptcy. And there's thoughts that about 25% of all restaurants in the United States will end up going bankrupt now due to this COVID-19. That's pretty sad to ruin that many people's lives.
One of the things that we have seen over the weekend, we have a representative, one of your colleagues, is asking for impeachment of the governor. I don't know. I doubt if that'll go very far, but the guy out in Butler County. We also have someone else asking for the Secretary of Health to step down. So we are getting some pushback now. We also saw the other day the governor citing where he gets his power from, and I think it's associated with the Emergencies Act. But one of the things when I read through that act the other day that was of interest to me, and I don't know if I'm misreading or not, and I wanted to get your help on this, that the State House of Representatives, after 90 days, and also the Senate in our state assembly, can have concurrent resolutions, which then would end the governor's statement of an emergency. Am I wrong on that? Or if so, explain what really goes on there.
No, we are looking at that now to possibly pass it. It's been introduced in both the House and Senate. We could even move before that time to possibly end the governor's thing. The problem is you got to, of course, get 102 and 26 in the Senate. So that's the real key before you can pass it. I think some legislators from particularly the Philadelphia, Montgomery County, Delaware area would be reluctant to vote for that. But
right.
Again, it's one of those things that I think that, Gary, the mistakes that have been made, and it's been very clearly pointed out by those in the media that the administration had a plan for seniors in nursing homes, assisted care, and they failed to enforce it. So we lost like 2,700 people in Pennsylvania to that. Yet what really bothers most people about Secretary Levine has been that she took her mom, who's 94 years old, out of a nursing home. And that really upset a lot of people in the legislature. I get it. I haven't called for her resignation. I do think it calls into question that when she failed to implement her plan to protect nursing homes, and then you do that for your mother, exactly whose interests are you working in, and when are you going to admit that some of the things that you've done are mistakes? So we all make mistakes. This is a first time for something like this pandemic, but at some point we have to move on. And she has continued to refuse to move forward, even with the statistics that would say we could go green.
One of the, Darrell Metcalf, by the way, was the one who's called for the impeachment of Governor Wolf. How serious is that? I mean, when you put out a resolution like that, and he's he laid out in there because he says a lack of transparency from the Wolf administration is handling the state's unemployment system, the current stay-at-home order, and his overall response to the COVID-19 crisis are reasons to impeachment. Are any of those reasons impeachable from your reading of the of what impeachment means?
No. I think the governor and Secretary Levine have made some major mistakes. I do believe in their hearts they were trying to do the right thing. But I believe that Darrell has gone too far asking for impeachment. I don't think that's necessary. I know some people have called for Secretary Levine to resign. I think more over the fact that she moved her mother out of a nursing home to a hotel. But in the end, I think you have to have criminal acts, and there's no criminal acts here by the governor. We could argue that he has exceeded his constitutional responsibilities. But I think if that doesn't say that in the future he would not do something that would not bring impeachable concerns to members. But there's no votes. I shouldn't say no votes. There's no two-thirds in the Senate to impeach him.
The thing with State Secretary Levine, and she explained that last week about her mother, said, my mother's 95 years old, but she's very lucid, she's very aware, and she asked me and my sister to move her out of there. Now, you know, and you say, well, that sounds okay. That sounds like a good explanation. And yet at the same time, you'd say, wouldn't you then make an announcement to everyone else, too, of, well, geez, if we're going to move her out of there, maybe all of you should be starting to maybe move people out of there, too. And one of the things I think that really hurt her, and it became a national story last week around the country, but one of the things that hurt her was the idea that in the beginning, when there was this quick response team kind of plan ready to go into place, that they didn't do it, and senior citizens who were coming out of hospitals who had nowhere else to go were sent back into nursing homes, almost like not a death sentence, but a sentence to be potentially sicker than they might have been otherwise. And I think therein lies the basis for why people became so upset about the story about her moving her mother out of there when other people were sent back in there in the beginning of this whole thing. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're exactly right, Gary. And here's the other thing, two more things. Not only did Secretary Levine do what she did, but she ordered the nursing homes to take those COVID-19 patients or they would lose their nursing home license. And number two, the governor and Secretary Levine released thousands of prisoners from the state prison, felons, because they were afraid they would get COVID-19 in prison. So they let people who were serving sometimes 7 to 8 years or shorter terms out of prison. But yet the nursing homes were not taken care of by Secretary Levine. If she's so concerned about prisoners, why not about our seniors? And that's where the criticism comes on her, is not only her mother, but her failure to recognize the problems that would happen in nursing homes if you sent COVID patients back. And then you're concerned more about prisoners than you are our seniors. Let
me ask you this question. I was talking with State Representative Jones, part of your delegation earlier. We just have about a minute left here, so we have another segment coming up with you. But we were talking about businesses like Round the Clock Restaurant, and they got a warning on Friday that if they come back again, this is for the Department of Agriculture, they come back again and to inspect, and there are more people dining in, or they're still holding the dining in kind of rules as they are right now in violation of even the yellow part of this whole thing, that they could be shut down, that they could have their certificate of occupancy revoked. And I went by Round the Clock Diner this weekend. It was jammed like in pre-COVID-19 times. The cars were all the way out to the end of their parking lot. If anybody knows Round the Clock Diner up there at Arsenal Road and 83, Theo, who's the head over there, grew up in Greece when the communists were threatening that country. And I've heard him, and I'm paraphrasing, say something along the lines of, if you want to know what it's like to live in our communist country, wake up. So he is open in defiance of that. The state police visited him the opening day, Sunday, a week ago. Talked about a warning. This past Thursday, representatives from the state agriculture showed up, gave him an official warning, and now apparently they're going to come back unannounced next time, and if he's still having dine-in, have threatened to pull certificate of occupancy and in some way shut him down. Having looked at the place over the weekend, I went by yesterday with my wife, and it was packed. I mean, it was unlike last weekend where there were a lot of cars there. Were not near these. I would say it was twice the number of cars there yesterday. This is shaping up to be a showdown right now. Is this a place that the governor wants to go? And I know your colleague Mike Jones has been helping organize businesses with reopenyork.com. What do you see happening here? What's coming up for us in terms of seeing a kind of a showdown here with the governor's rules and his say-so compared to the local rules of the county, the state, or the county, the city, the area? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Theo has done a great job out around the clock diner in that the way he has opened back up is very safe. I mean, I thought the things he announced and how he was handling his reopening were amazing, and that's exactly how the governor should look at things. Is the idea that the Secretary of Ag would pull his license would not make a lot of members of the General Assembly very happy. We have made it very clear we believe that if people can open back up, the governor and the Secretary of Ag or any licensing board should take a look at how that group did it, whether it's a barbershop or it's a restaurant. If they are acting responsibly in reopening, there should be no consequences. They should be recognized for the job they're doing in protecting citizens. And when you look at how Around the Clock Diner is doing it, the last time I know he was doing every other table. He was his waitresses and stuff were wearing masks. He had all the items, salt and pepper shakers, ketchup, whatever, are wiped down after every person's used with sanitary wipes. So I think those are the kind of things we need to recognize need to happen and need to happen now. We need to be green. You as an individual have a right to make the judgment for your own self. And when other people in government make that decision, you are living under socialism and communism. And I think that he is a perfect example of somebody who says, look, I came from a society that does what we're doing now. That doesn't smack at the governor saying, hey, the governor's completely wrong in all this. I understand the governor wants to protect people, but we also as individuals have the right to choose whether we want to go out and go to Lowe's or Home Depot, which many people are. But if we want to go to a restaurant, should we have that choice as well? It's our health. It's our decision to make that. And I think that it's time to end this, and I think I commend Theo, and I commend anybody out there who is saying, I'm reopening, I'm not going to follow this order any longer. We are
now. The devil's advocate argument is going to come back. People are going to say, well, you're doing that, but then when you go back out of there, if you're carrying the virus, you're endangering me and the rest of society, so you're infringing on my rights to be safe because you acted irresponsibly or in an unsafe way. How do you respond to that? And I'm sure you've heard the same arguments I have. I'm throwing that out as a kind of a devil's advocate question for you.
Sure. Gary, look, if you don't want to go out to Around the Clock Diner or to the barbershop that's open, that's your choice, okay? But
right.
You don't make that choice for somebody else.
And here's the other argument that we have here too is this going to be endemic or not? In other words, as we look ahead, do I not go out because I have the flu? Or, now good sense would say probably don't go out and put that to somebody else out there, right? So if you care about other people, that's the way you'd feel. But, for example, we have flu, we have other things. We have things that do I not go out because I might get hit by a car today? Do I not go out because I might spread something that I don't know I have? We do that all the time. And that's part of living in a society, not hiding from some of the things that can affect us adversely. So, that's part of it, too. But I guess people are looking at this COVID thing in a lot different way. About a minute left. Final thoughts, Stan.
Well, I think the media has hyped this, as many others have, into something that's going to kill everybody. That's just not true. It's very clear. New York has, for every case they discovered, there were 9 other people who had it before and didn't even go to the hospital or a doctor when they did the testing. Many people in Pennsylvania have had it, didn't know they have it. And it's time for us to realize this is no different than the flu. We all need to be cautious. We all need to be careful. But the media has scared the daylights out of people. You cannot live in fear and have a happy life.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's absolutely true. And I think we go back to how do we live with this in a responsible way in some new times that we're in until we feel like we can get back to normal, which is like going in without worrying about a mask and the social distancing and all that kind of stuff maybe being cut down. But how do we do that? And that's going to be the big how. But in the meantime, we have these debates going on among people of goodwill, I think. Stan, always appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you so much, and we look forward to our next time very soon.
Thank you, Gary. Have a great day.
Thank you. Stan Saylor, House Appropriations Committee or Chairman, and also representative from the 94th Legislative District.